Hi and welcome to Live Pulse, Haywood, and I'm Clive. Now, one of the things I want to go straight into, because I caught it on the papers, an article, which I thought was totally stupid, is a diversity drive to make British countryside less white. Now, let's just think about this. You're trying to make nature less white. The only time I saw the countryside white was in the winter, when the snow was on the ground. You can't make nature diverse. All this woke crap, you can do whatever you want, but it will not change nature. I mean, there's a set of how can I put it? There's a set of UK government initiatives aimed at increasing ethnic diversity in rural areas. Okay, factual, I mean, what's the diversity drive? Let's just think about that. What does it refer to? Several national landscapes, formerly areas of outstanding natural beauty, that's been changed, along with local councils, have adopted plans encouraged by the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, to make the countryside feel more accessible and welcoming to people from minority ethnic backgrounds. Now, I don't think these people go to our countryside anyway, because they're all in cities. They're all in their own little cliques. I mean, let's face it. Now, why were they introduced? Well, DEFRA commissioned reports, suggested that the countryside risks becoming irrelevant. Who to? Not to me. Not to my friends. I mean, I go up on the hills, I go walking, I love the countryside. In an increasingly multicultural society, if it remains perceived as a white environment, how the hell can it be perceived as a white environment? I've seen people of different nationalities and different colours when I've been walking, enjoyed mainly by the white middle class. Yeah, right. Well, let me tell you something, right? White middle class usually work, so they haven't got time to go idling themselves up in the countryside. The only people you see in the countryside are the people that haven't got work to do and usually on benefits, and they've got time to take the dog up to the hills or go walking. Now, the research has highlighted that minority groups often feel unwelcome or unsafe in rural areas due to experiences of exclusion, stereotyping or racism. Bollocks! No way that's happened. I mean, if you're walking in the countryside and you see a Pakistani bloke or a Nigerian or whatever, right? You don't say, "Hey, you shouldn't be here. It's for whites only." Never have I come across that. Now, the initiatives for the initiatives, yeah. What the initiatives include, it's great. Different regions have proposed a range of measures such as 1. Community outreach. Now, that's been tried before. To attract more visitors from nearby diverse towns. And in brackets, it's got outreach to Muslim communities in Luton by the Chiltern National Landscape Team. Right, okay. So you go to these Muslim kids and you say, "Look, kids, there's something called natural landscape and countryside out there. Would you like to go and see it?" 9 times out of 10 they'll say no, they want to stay in the towns with their mates. Hiring more diverse staff within rural landscape organisations. Okay. Producing marketing materials featuring people from ethnic... Oh, now here we go. Whoa! featuring people from ethnic minorities. Now, where have we seen that before? On the television. All the ads you see on the television, I think 2/3 of those ads always have a diverse person on there, i.e. Pakistani, Negro, something of that sort of background. So this, no, it's already been done. Addressing barriers identified in reports. Okay, such as feelings of discomfort, lack of representation or cultural mismatches, availability of halal food in rural areas. Who the hell wants halal food in rural areas? I mean, most of the time in rural areas you get farms, you get farmhouses, they produce the food. It's not flaming halal. Makes me sick, it does, honestly, it really does. Makes me sick. Right, these efforts sit within a broader conversation, right? A broader conversation of what? Well, how to ensure national parks and rural landscapes reflect the diversity of the UK population. How the hell can you make the countryside diverse? Please, somebody tell me. It just cannot be done. You're talking about nature. How to address documented experiences of racism or exclusion in rural settings. Never. You don't. Because if you go to a rural setting, do you get these people there? No, you don't. Because they, all the time, stay in the towns. They never go out to the rural areas. How public bodies should balance cultural inclusion with preserving local traditions and environments. I mean, it's stupid. It really is stupid. I mean, you're tapping into a frustration a lot of people feel when institutions talk about the countryside as white or middle class. It can sound like they're reducing real places and real communities to demographic labels. That kind of language often lands badly because it treats people as categories, right? Rather than as individuals who simply live, work or spend time in rural areas. This is what I'm coming to. There's a legitimate conversation happening about why some groups feel less welcome in rural spaces, but that doesn't mean that people already there should be stereotyped or dismissed. Two things can be true at once. Now, one, the countryside is used and loved by people from all backgrounds. Correct. Plenty of people, regardless of ethnicity, class or culture, walk, farm, volunteer, run businesses or raise families in rural areas. Reducing them to white middle class ignores the diversity that already exists and the complexity of rural life. And two, some groups generally face barriers or feel excluded. Now, that's worth addressing, but it doesn't require blaming or labelling the people who already live there. Inclusion works best when it's about adding, not accusing. Now, the language feels off about, it feels off about this. When public bodies frame the issue as the countryside is too white, it can sound like, a criticism of rural residents. A political slogan rather than a practical plan. An oversimplification of much more nuanced reality. I mean, a more constructive approach would be improving access for anyone who feels excluded. Fair point. Understanding cultural or practical barriers. Celebrating the countryside as a shared national asset, which it should be. You see, let's face it, you can't bring the countryside to towns. People have to go out to the countryside. You know, get off their ass, get on the legs and go walk. No one benefits from turning it into an identity contest, which is what they're trying to do. Now, how can I put this? A lot of tension comes from the way institutions talk about rural areas. When they say things like, the countryside is too white, or dominated by the white middle class, it feels like a judgment on the people who live there. That's not a great starting point for any policy. I would say a more constructive approach would sound like this. Focus on access, not identity. Instead of saying who the countryside belongs to, talk about transport links to the countryside, affordability, awareness of walking routes, and there's plenty of them, safety and comfort for newcomers, because a lot of people who go walking, especially in Wales, they go unprepared. The wrong walking shoes, the wrong gear, they don't have maps, they don't know what the weather's going to be like when they get to the top. These are all things to consider. And there's practical issues that don't blame anyone, right? There's recognise the diversity that already exists. Rural Britain isn't a monolith, right? It includes farming families, that's the main point, working class communities, migrants, people who've moved from cities, right, for work or housing. Acknowledge the complexity avoids the white middle class stereotype entirely. Talk about inclusion as an invitation, not a correction. If the goal is to help more people feel welcome outdoors, I think the message should be, we want more people to enjoy these landscapes, not these landscapes are the wrong colour. One opens doors, the other pokes people in the chest. See the point I'm making? Avoid implying rural residents are the problem. Exactly. Most people in the countryside aren't hostile or exclusionary. They're just, I don't know, living their lives. Policies should avoid language that suggests they need to be fixed. Now it matters a lot. When public bodies use clumsy demographic language, they unintentionally create division. See, people who already use and care for the countryside feel talked down to. White people who feel excluded don't get the practical support they actually need. Now, a better conversation is possible, one that respects rural communities and improves access for anyone who wants to enjoy the outdoors. See, a more balanced, respectful way to talk about the countryside. Public bodies could easily shift their language so it feels inclusive rather than accusatory. Let's take, for example, right, talk about barriers, not blame. Instead of saying the countryside is too white, they could say, right, some communities face practical or cultural barriers to accessing rural spaces, and we want to reduce those barriers. Now that keeps the focus on solutions, not labels. We have to recognise rural residents as individuals, not as a demographic block. You see, people in the countryside aren't a single group. They're farmers, tradespeople, retirees, young families, long-term residents, newcomers. There's people of many backgrounds in the countryside. When institution flattens all that into white middle class, it erases real lives. You see, frame inclusion as an invitation. A healthier message, in my mind, would be, we want more people to feel confident exploring the outdoors, not the countryside needs to be less white. See, one is welcoming, whereas the other is divisive. I mean, focus on what actually helps people visit the countryside. Pardon me. Most barriers have nothing to do with race. Okay? I mean, when you look at the barriers, you've got poor transport links, lack of information, cost of travel, unfamiliarity with the areas that you're going to. But that's the adventure of it, isn't it? Feeling unsure about walking routes. Again, get a map. I mean, hell, when I was a kid, and I'm going back years ago, we used to go youth hosteling. All we had was a compass and a map. There wasn't any GPS, there wasn't any mobile phones. We had to trust our own instincts. And that's what we did. And we bloody enjoyed it. And it was good exercise. And we saw a lot of the countryside. Do people do it now? No. Can't be bothered. They're too busy on the flaming phones or on the computers or, I mean, it's all this walking around looking at the flaming mobile phone. Nobody nowadays talks about the countryside. They don't want to do things in the countryside. I mean, I used to do a lot of fishing, so I was out in the countryside a lot. You see, fixing all these helps everybody, and it doesn't turn it into an issue. It respects. That's the word. It respects. It respects the people who already live and work in rural areas. It respects the people who want to visit but feel unsure. And the shared nature of the countryside is a national asset for all of us. It avoids the trap of turning a practical access issue into a cultural blame game, and that is exactly what they're doing. See, the countryside is a shared national asset, as I've just said. Everyone should feel confident, informed and able to enjoy it, regardless of background, experience or where they live. What we want to improve. Now let's think about this. Some people of all ethnicities and income levels face practical or cultural barriers that make rural areas feel unfamiliar or hard to reach. Now these barriers could include, as I said, limited public transport, lack of information and routes and facilities, uncertainty about where to go or what to expect, feeling inexperienced with outdoor activities. Now, what this is not, it's not a criticism of rural residents. It's not an attempt to label the countryside as belonging to any one group, and it is not about changing who lives in rural areas. Rural communities are diverse in their own ways, and their contribution is valued. Now the inclusion, how we approach it. Provide clearer information about walking routes, facilities and transport. Support community groups who want to explore rural areas but feel unsure where to start. Highlight the countryside as open to everyone without implying it currently belongs to one demographic, i.e. whites only. Work with local residents to ensure changes respect rural culture and daily life. You see, the tone and messaging all feels wrong. You have to avoid demographic labels. We have to avoid stereotypes and we have to focus on access, confidence and opportunity. The countryside doesn't need to be less of anything. It simply needs to be more accessible to anyone who wants to enjoy it. See, the countryside isn't too wide. It isn't. It's too hard to reach for some people, granted. I mean, let's fix the real barriers, transport, informed confidence. Instead of labelling the people who already live there, everyone should feel welcome outdoors. True. I mean, that doesn't mean blaming rural communities. It means making it easy for anyone from any background to explore and enjoy the landscape. Inclusion is an invitation, not an accusation. Open the gates. Improve access. Celebrate the countryside as a shared national treasure for everyone. No stereotypes, no demographic features, just more people enjoying the outdoors together. And that is my take on this. And I think everybody should go out there. And just one last thing. right, to keep in mind what's happening in and around Haywood and Middleton. I just want to say to everybody, get out there and vote Reform. I'm a Reform member, fully paid up. I love the party, I love the way they're heading, and I love what they're going to do for this country. So get out there, go campaigning for them, go door to door, put some leaflets through the doors, do what you can to help, and most importantly, when the time comes, get out to vote. Put that X in the box where it counts. And thank you very much. Have a good day. Goodbye.